If the last few years have taught us anything, it's that it's a very fine line between things being okay and things not being okay. And even if you were in a very secure, safe job with a good income and you built your lifestyle around that, 2020 proved that that could stop at any time, and that you may not be protected by the people you thought you could trust, such as your employer. And when money is the bottom line, the profit margins are the bottom line, it's usually the employees who lose out. And businesses shut down, businesses were forced to close during the lockdowns, there were furlough schemes. I don't work in employment in that sense, so I have no experience of furlough. I don't know if it was paying people's wages, if it was paying a part of people's wages, if people weren't getting anything at all. And I know that there will be plenty of jobs where nobody was getting anything. So if you were a 0 hours contract person, if you were self-employed, you won't be getting anything. Now, it's been a long time since I worked in employment. My last full-time job was in 2009, and I don't think I could ever go back to doing that. There's multiple reasons for that. My attitude towards work and towards money has changed a lot in that time. I couldn't imagine going back to a full-time job for the routine. Everything about it just doesn't work well with who I am anymore. I've changed a lot in that time. My attitudes have changed, my ethics have changed, my feelings towards work-life balance have changed a lot. So I went to university for 3 years as a mature student. That's how I got out of full-time employment. And afterwards I set up my own business. I started setting it up during my time at university, and then I was running it afterwards, but of course it wasn't making enough money. So I did take on part-time jobs here and there, little bits and pieces, keep things ticking over. And I realised that this was how things were probably going to be. I didn't want to compromise on being self-employed, but I also knew it wasn't going to be enough money to support me unless I just spent all my savings, which isn't an option for me because I don't really have a retirement fund. So I had the self-employed income. I had part-time, I joined a secretarial agency and was getting bits of work here, there and everywhere, but I could largely choose what I wanted to do, how long I was going to be there, so I wasn't in permanent fixtures. And I like that. I like the change of scenery, I like the change in tempo from week to week, and I really thrive on that now. But if you were in full-time employment, and maybe you still are, maybe you're not, you probably would have thought about how fragile that way of working is. And one thing I noticed, because by the time 2020 came around, I was very much ensconced in a world of self-employment. I had lots of side hustles. I was doing bits and pieces here and there. I wasn't tied to one employer, and some of those income streams were not reliant on being able to leave the house every day. So there were things that I could still easily do from home. By then I was selling completely online through my business on e-commerce sites, and online became the thing in 2020 when people couldn't go out anymore. And after that I discovered things like cashback apps, I discovered online surveys, and I started to build up my different income streams with those, because things change all the time and you never know where something else is going to happen. And now we are stuck in an economic cost of living crisis, and businesses are still going under. Jobs still aren't certain. Lots of businesses can't afford their energy bills, so they're running on part-time hours because opening offices, opening restaurants is costing them more money than they're making. So with a lot of what I do, where I work from home pretty much all the time now, it means that my income streams are always there. And yes, that will change. You might get a survey site that's really great one week and doesn't give you anything the next, and that's why you have lots of different survey companies, because they're not all from the same supplier. So if one company goes down or folds or just stops offering you surveys, there are 7 or 8 other survey companies that are still doing surveys, and that means that that income stream within reason stays the same. What I'm trying to say is that you need to think about future-proofing and disaster-proofing your income. Relying on one employer is quite a dangerous thing these days, because you have no guarantee as to how things are going to go. If it's not your company, then you don't know what decisions they're making behind the scenes. You don't know when, like my brother next week, you are suddenly going to be made redundant. And all of a sudden you're out on a limb. Work loyalty. So my brother's been there for many, many years. There is no serious loyalty. However, that company struggled on through COVID, and for the last 3 years has hung in there. They had to cut everyone's hours, they had to cut everyone's pay, and everyone who worked there was limping on, just barely getting by. But they stayed with the company because it's company loyalty and they look after you. And now it's folding and everyone's going to lose a job. And I would imagine that based on the industry that is in, that's a no choice situation. I think that's a pretty tough thing to have to deal with, and I think it was always inevitable that this company was going to go under based on its industry. If you are in a full-time job or you are in a regular part-time job, what else can you do to disaster-proof your income? Think about the other income streams that I was talking about recently on my my 4th quarter financial update. I list the other things that I do. I have 12 income streams now. Some of them are really small. We're not talking amazing amounts of money, and some of them are coming to an end now, so next year there will be less income streams. But think about doing things like surveys. If you have a smartphone, you can do surveys, and particularly if you're part-time or you have an amount of time to yourself, maybe in the evening while you're watching telly, do something else with it at the same time. If you do have money in the bank that's just sitting there, get yourself a high interest bank account. There are plenty of fixed bond locked accounts. If you can't lock away your money, there are several good paying digital banks for easy access. So my favourite one is Tandem. They're currently paying 5%, and literally every penny that is just sitting around in other bank accounts I put in there, and then when I need to pay a bill or settle a credit card statement, whatever, I can easily drop out the money that I need. But it means that every spare penny I have is sitting in an earning account. It's not a vast amount of money. I'm making about $1,700 a year on interest. A lot of my savings are locked away because I consider them to be a long-term investment. So I don't have very much to hand, but I have enough to get by. And of course I'm always adding to that Tandem pot, which means every month I get some free money back for putting it all in there. And that's how I maximise my interest. So that could be an income stream for you if you regularly keep several £100s just sitting in your regular current accounts. If you're good at monitoring your money, at managing your money, then you can make this work. Sell stuff, get rid of stuff that you own, get rid of the clutter. You can make money. I sell on eBay and Vinted. It's not vast amounts of money, but every penny counts. If you're short of £50 one month to pay your credit card bill, could you sell those half a dozen dresses in your cupboard that you've never ever worn, things that still have labels on? It's always worth seeing what you can do. If you are part-time, you have extra time to do stuff. So I've taken on the clinical trials work, which is very sporadic. It takes time. So the last one I did was 9 days in a medical unit. But it's very good money, and if you can, there were lots of people in there while I was there who were working remotely. They took their jobs with them, so they were earning at their regular jobs whilst being in the unit, being paid to lie there and have take a couple of pills a day. It was, it's double money for them, and it's helping to top up the wages. I also do the agency cleaning work, very much in my control. I'm not doing many hours a week. I have one client I do 4 hours for a week. I have one private client I do 1.5 hours a week, and they're in the same building, so that makes life easier. And then I have a new client who at the moment have got me in doing at least 3 hours a week, but that will reduce as we get on top of the job, and will be probably 3 hours every 2 weeks. So it's not taking out a lot of my time, but it's creating a nice variation in my week. If you can disaster-proof your income, do it. It's really, really important, because businesses are still going under. You still have no guarantees that your job is going to remain. You have no guarantee that your wages will remain, that your hours will remain. It's a really tough time right now. Have a serious look at what you could potentially do. It may not be possible. You might be up to your eyes in responsibilities, children to care for, maybe relatives that you're caring for, and you're holding down a job. Your job might be unreliable hours, your shifts might change regularly. So look at things that you can do when you do have that time, like doing the surveys. So if you find that you're not going into work in the morning, maybe your shift has changed, you can sit there doing surveys. You're not going to make an absolute fortune. I make between about 170 and £200 a month on surveys. That's actually for me really, really good money. That pays for several bills. That pays utility bills and all sorts of things. That £200 will pay for my home insurance for a year. So it does make a difference.